All right, gather around, homies. I got another one for you that's probably familiar. We're talking about the case of Casey, the Casey case, Casey Anthony. That's right. Goes way back. Okay, this one's a crazy tale, as some of you may know, and if you don't know it, stick around. I'm going to tell you all about it in just a few minutes. Have you ever heard of Casey Anthony? Yeah, the gal from Florida whose name got plastered over every billboard and newspaper, and well, when they had newspapers, and all over the internet, and all over the Facebooks, and all over that good stuff. That was back in 2008. Her story has more twists and turns than you can imagine. And let me tell you, folks, it's not pretty at all. But it sure is fascinating if you're into true crime and stuff like that. And it's also downright bizarre. So buckle up, because this one's going to be a wild ride. Now, first, let me set the stage here. Casey Anthony was just your average 20-something young female living with her parents in Orlando, Florida. George and Cindy Anthony. And, of course, her adorable little girl, Kaylee. Kaylee was only 2 years old. Cute as a button and as innocent as a lamb. But one day in June 2008, Casey packed up Kaylee and left her parents' house. And then, poof, Kaylee, their granddaughter, was gone. 31 days passed without anyone seeing her. That's a whole month, folks, a whole month. That is horrible for grandparents to endure. When Casey finally showed back up at her parents' home, her mom, Cindy, felt like something was wrong, like deep down in her gut. She knew it was a horrible feeling. She wanted to know where her granddaughter was, like any other caring grandparent would. And on top of that, Casey's car had reeked like something had crawled in there and died. Literally. Cindy called 911 faster than you could say crime scene. She reported Kaylee missing and also told the 911 operator about the smell in the car, in Casey's car, in the trunk of her car. Now, here's where things go from weird to downright kooky. Casey told the cops that Kaylee had been kidnapped by someone named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, to be exact. Sounds legit, right? Except there was no Zanny, not a trace of her anywhere. Casey had a history of spinning yarns, of lying, not just to her parents, but to her friends. And you kind of find that out later as you dig deeper into the case of Casey Anthony. But we're not going to get into that exactly right now, but that's kind of the person that she presents herself to be. She even led the police on a wild goose chase through none other than Universal Studios, claiming that she worked there. Yeah, she was one of those types of liars. And then, of course, only to admit that she'd been lying all along. Meanwhile, investigators found traces of chloroform in Casey's car trunk and also hair strands matching Kaylee's. They also uncovered computer searches for chloroform on the family computer. Talk about suspicious. But Casey didn't stop. She kept lying and spinning yarns and telling tales until she got caught up in a web of her own deceit and couldn't get out of it. It was sickening and humiliating and obvious that something was wrong with not just Casey, but her daughter, Kaylee. She even said that Kaylee drowned accidentally in their pool in the backyard. And she claimed that her dad helped her cover it up. Folks, that claim was shakier than a ladder with one leg. Now, fast forward to 2011. So this is 2008. Go to 2011. The trial of the century kicks off, and many of you remember that trial. The prosecution painted Casey as a cold-blooded murderer. They accused her of killing her own daughter, Kaylee, with chloroform and with duct tape before dumping her body somewhere. But Casey's defense team? Oh boy. They threw everything but the kitchen sink at the jury. Accidental drowning, family cover-up, abuse allegations against her dad. You name it, they threw it at the jury. After 6 weeks of courtroom drama that gripped the nation, tighter than grandma's hug at Thanksgiving, the jury shocked everyone. Not guilty of even manslaughter. Not only murder, but manslaughter. Yep, Casey walked free, except for lying to law enforcement. That's it. A slap on the wrist compared to what folks thought that she deserved. Now, here we are all these years later, 2025. That's what, about 14 years? And guess what? Casey Anthony is back in the spotlight like she never left. And she's calling herself a legal advocate. And it's making people sick. Yep, she's on TikTok. She's on Subtrack, trying to rebrand herself like an old diner with a fresh coat of paint. But it doesn't seem to be working, folks. She says over and over again she wants to advocate for herself and for Kaylee. But let me tell you, most folks aren't buying what she's selling. Her return has stirred up more bad blood than a family reunion after someone forgets to bring potato salad. Basically, her attempt to rebrand herself as a legal advocate and to advocate for herself, it's not working. People are outraged. Most of America thought she was guilty of what she did. So I thought I'd give you a detailed look at kind of what's going on right now before we end with all this. Fox News described Casey Anthony as America's most hated mom, and they criticized her new venture as a horrible public stunt aimed at two things: garnering attention and creating a way to make money, financial gain and popularity. That's it. And her former attorney, Brad Conway, even slammed her efforts, suggesting that her narrative of overcoming adversity is just a publicity stunt and nobody's buying it, and that it's disingenuous. She says she wants to help others, and he's not even buying it. Y'all know who Nancy Grace is. Well, she also covered the Casey Anthony case, and she covered it extensively, labeled her new career as a money grab, also questioning the authenticity of her legal advocacy. Not to mention Rolling Stone magazine highlighted the public's skepticism, with one user comparing Anthony's rebranding to Jeffrey Dahmer starting a steakhouse, basically indicating the absurdity of her new venture, of her new persona. And then, of course, there's YouTubers and influencers like Katie Morton, a mental health YouTuber. Morton analyzed Casey Anthony's TikTok video, pointing out several red flags and questioning her true intentions. She noted Anthony's quick disabling of comments, suggesting a calculated attempt to reshape public perceptions. And then there's Perez Hilton, commenting on Anthony's return to social media, noting that her presence has enraged many TikTok users with calls for her removal from the platform. And that's everywhere. You're going to see that everywhere. He also mentioned her past legal troubles and the public's perception of her guilt, despite her acquittal. And there's Entertainment Tonight also covered Anthony's trial, and they're focusing on her promise of uncut, raw, and unfiltered coverage of the trial. Raw, uncut, and unfiltered legal advocacy. They highlighted her controversial acquittal and the massive media coverage that it received. And I could go on and on and on. Her video did get 4.1 million views, but most of it was just slamming her. And that's why the comment section was disabled. But the video's been shared over 64,000 times, but it's all been negative. So her rebranding episode has been horrible, and it's getting a lot of backlash. I think there's 2,700 people that signed up for her newsletter, but who knows what their motives were for doing that. And some have claimed that that's just a PR stunt, that they're not real subscribers, maybe. So what do you guys think? Do you think she's guilty? Is she guilty of sin, or did she just get caught up in something that she had no control over? Either way, this case is proof that truth can definitely be stranger than fiction, and justice isn't always easy to pin down. So folks, if you got thoughts on this wild tale, let me know. Put it in the comments section. Forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the story of Casey Anthony. If you thought this was interesting and to the point and short, do not forget to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss more stories like this, because trust me, I have plenty more where this came from. And I'll see you in the next file.